Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm your host, Jay Acharya, CEO of Aspire Consulting and Training Limited, and this is the Becoming the Leader in You podcast. In every episode, I'll be talking to guests about their leadership stories, both personal and professional, stories of their inspirations, their successes, and of course, challenges and how they overcame them. Before we go any further, however, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, make comments. And as well as being on YouTube, you'll be able to listen to us on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and all other podcast stations. Today's guest, though, has spent over a decade helping people learn what actually matters, from leading teams and managing energy to quite literally not drowning. She's worked across corporate giants, fast-moving scale-ups, and even classrooms. And along the way, she's taught both adults and children how to swim. So whether it's a tough conversation or front crawl, she's pretty much got you covered. She also holds a bachelor's in international business, a master's in leadership, and is an ILM endorsed performance coach. So yeah, she pretty much knows her stuff too. And when she's not developing leaders, she's in open water, literally. She's the long-distance swimmer, part of Trafford Rowing Club, completed a 4-person English Channel relay in 2024 and placed top 10 in her age group at the Bosphorus Cross Continental Swim. Whew. So if you've ever wondered what leadership and endurance have in common, I think you're going to enjoy this one. My guest is Kim Taylor from With Kim. Kim, welcome to Becoming the Leader in You podcast.
Thanks very much. Very generous introduction. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. I have to say that you're a leadership coach who, I don't know, helps stay afloat in tough conversations. And yeah, I'm guessing that's right. Do you help them sort of swim away if it's not going the way that you want it to?
I like the metaphor here with the water. I think we might have a few of those sprinkled in throughout our conversation today. But yeah, I think for me, leadership is all about having good conversations and good connections with people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think a lot of people feel like leadership is sort of sink or swim, and very much like swimming and rowing, it's not quite that simple. There's a little bit of a bit of learning in between that happens along the way. And like both of those, you can always improve on those conversations and in your leadership skills in general.
Excellent. So your company is called With Kim. Tell me where the With Kim came from.
It's a bit of a silly story in a way, and sort of a bit of a roundabout way of arriving at that kind of brand, if you like. So for a while, I was a little bit unsure as to what exactly I was going to do, and I was sort of talking with friends, and we were sort of thinking about different ideas about kind of what I could be doing. And swimming teaching is something that I've always enjoyed, and I've actually done for free for a lot of people over the years, just as a bit of a hobby, and because it's something I enjoy. And actually, for a while, I thought I might go into that full time because it's something I enjoy so much and I'm so passionate about. Yeah. And that just sort of because it rhymes, Swim with Kim came up. And actually, there's something really nice about that idea, because it's, swimming for, children, adults, whoever, can actually be a really kind of frightening and daunting experience. Yeah. So With Kim is about that idea of, being supported through something that is actually quite challenging. And I've then sort of expanded that into my kind of more professional world. Mm-hmm. Again, leadership and sort of learning can actually be something that people have had maybe negative experiences of and find really quite difficult to kind of challenge themselves. So the idea of With Kim is that I'm there with them to kind of support them through that learning journey and apply that into their everyday practice. That's
great. It's funny because a couple of days ago I was saying, I'm going to be recording a podcast, and the lady who runs her company is called With Kim. And they said, why is it called With Kim? So I said, because her name's Rachel. Why do you think? And they thought, okay, but why would they call it With? Oh, right, okay, I get it now. But genuinely, I think it's such a good brand, because you can always turn around. Swim with Kim is great. Leadership with Kim, coaching with Kim, and it's just got that ring to it. So you've got a really good brand there, and it's really cool. It's not forgettable. Put it that way.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you.
No, you're most welcome. And how long's With Kim been running and operating as a leadership business?
Not that long, just over a year actually. So it's been a very much a journey of kind of understanding what it is to kind of lead your own business and you know go on that kind of self-employed journey.
Yeah.
So not long at all.
Okay. And how did you get into leadership? So was it part of your work prior to setting up with Kim?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of started my career in sort of project management, business improvement, all very kind of matrix organization types where I kind of be coordinating lots of people. So I actually started my own leadership journey in that sense quite early on in my career.
Okay.
And I sort of ended up gravitating towards a more of a learning and development, learning consultant, learning partner type role. And since then, kind of the people skills and the, you know, essentially leadership skills is always what I found most fascinating. And that's what led me to kind of do a master's in leadership and so on. So I suppose I've really been kind of in that space for at least 10 years, in that kind of leadership development space, both from my own kind of development as a leader, but also supporting others as first-time line managers, all the way through to kind of leaders of, you know, whole divisions and leaders of companies as well.
Fantastic. Okay. So as ever, I always say to all of my guests that the title of this podcast is called Becoming the Leader in You. So what would you say Becoming the Leader in You is all about for yourself?
It's such a good question because I think there are so many possible answers to it. So for me, one of the things that being, you know, the leader in you is about having a vision or a goal of something and, you know, about what you want to achieve. And then importantly, working towards that. And I think that kind of working towards it is also important to say that it's working towards it in a way that is aligned with your values and your kind of priorities as a whole person. You know, leadership, we talk about it, you know, in a professional context in this sort of, as if that's sort of boxed in, but actually it kind of spans everything and it affects everything. So I think that working towards something in line with your values and priorities. Excellent.
And it's nice that you say that because a lot of the guests I've spoken with, they've all said the same thing, that leadership is about having the values that are instilled in you from a young age, and it's what you do with them as you carry on, as you move on with your working journey. But when we talk about your swimming, there's an element of having a lot of resilience, isn't there? And there's a lot of, so the fact that you did the 4-person relay across the channel, first of all, wow. You know, I feel as though I'm going to drown when I put my foot into a puddle. But yeah, no, I'm exaggerating. It's probably just a little droplet or something. No, but from a leadership perspective, there is an element of, you know, I've got to swim through these challenges I'm facing. But to be able to have that ability to swim the channel, I'm assuming on your own, although you'll have a boat next to you, what's going through your mind as you're in that zone?
It's a fascinating question because I think a lot of swimmers will vary quite hugely on this. And some of my friends, when we talk about these sorts of things, I'm friends with long distance runners and you know, other endurance athletes and so on. And the thing that I think is maybe a little bit different for me compared to some of my friends is the fact that there is often nothing going on in my head when I'm swimming. Absolutely nothing. I might be counting 1, 2, 3, breathe, 1, 2, 3, breathe. Or I might be thinking, oh, I can, in the channel, for instance, you sort of, or you get to kind of feel where there's a wave coming up. So you kind of anticipate, okay, it's gonna, if I breathe now, I'm gonna get a mouthful of water. So I need to delay it or I need to adjust slightly. So you're very much in the moment and responding to what's in front of you. But when the going's good, just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's it.
In the words of, was it Dory who said, just keep swimming, just keep swimming?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And I mean, some of my friends find it absolutely astonishing that there is nothing going on upstairs when I'm in that state. But I think that's kind of what flow state is, isn't it? Where
and that makes sense.
to kind of do it.
And from a leadership perspective, when you're thinking it, what's the analogy then? If we were talking about swimming the channel and a leader leading their business, how can you sort of marry the two up?
I think it's all in the preparation. So, swimming across the channel as a part of a relay team, well, actually, as a relay team, it's even more kind of akin to leadership, because the bonds and the connection that you create with the people that are around you, so the other 3 members of the relay team and the crew on the boat and all that sort of stuff, is so important. So when the going does get tough and when you are feeling like you want to give up, just a little look to them and a nod of encouragement, a kind word, a bit of humor, whatever, will see you through those difficult moments. And I think it's exactly the same in a kind of professional leadership context. And also that kind of preparation. So, swimming across the channel doesn't happen overnight. There's some preparation where, you do the long swims, you put yourself in environments that are likely to mirror the conditions that you might face in the channel. And you kind of learn as much as you can by talking to other people, gather knowledge and so on. So I think, again, in a business context, in a leadership context, it's exactly the same. It's about talking to people and understanding as much as you can about what you might face.
Fantastic. And I like the way that you said that there's a team that allows you to achieve this. So at any given time, who would actually be in the lead in your crew?
I'm not sure what you mean by that, actually, in terms of, kind of lead. Do you mean a leader?
Who would be taking the lead? Yeah. So would you be the leader as you're swimming, or is there somebody else in the boat that is actually the lead for the team?
That's a really interesting question. I've not really thought about it like that. I mean, ultimately, the crew who are manning the boat, the support boat, they are the ones in charge. They make all of the decisions about kind of, where physically where we go. If they turn the boat, then the swimmer follows them. And if we need to speed up, it's them that sort of communicate in some way, saying, "Oh, yeah, you need to kind of."
So they're the decision makers.
They're the decision makers, because ultimately our safety is in their hands. And we are talking kind of potential life and death in that situation, and they're the ones who are experienced on that channel of water. It's that. So I suppose in that sense they're the leaders, but actually everybody has a role to play, whether it's the person helping you kind of get dressed and dry off and everything when you get out the water, or the person that's kind of there with a little whiteboard saying 5 minutes to go, or whatever else it might be. Everybody has a role, but in terms of who actually makes the decisions and whose responsibility or who's responsible for everything, it's the crew of the support boat ultimately.
Excellent. The reason I ask that is purely when you think about how organizations run, that different people, different departments have got their heads and they have a responsibility. And as you said, this is literally life and death. So it's understanding whose responsibility is it at what time. So coming back to that leadership analogy, it's kind of like realizing that lots of different people have different responsibilities and roles at a particular time. So people wear those leadership or management or team or crew hats at the right times. I'd be right in saying that, wouldn't I? And
absolutely,
this is why leadership is really important, because there's an assumption that when we talk about leaders, it's just that one person sitting on a mighty high chair who runs the whole organization. And that's not the case, especially when you want to be a successful 4-person relay team. You've all got a responsibility.
Absolutely. And I think, I talked about quite early in my career, sort of having leadership responsibility, not in the traditional sense. I didn't have line reports quite early on, but I was leading a team of people from different departments with different specialist skills. And I think that kind of leadership is actually really underrated. And I think sometimes it's underappreciated, because in a way, without having that formal authority over people, you really need to kind of dig in and develop those people skills to kind of bring people with you and essentially convince people that they need to help.
Absolutely. And Kim, you just mentioned about not having leadership responsibilities, but having having the leadership skills from a younger age or from a younger professional time. So who would you say, or what would you say has shaped you the most as a leader?
I think there's all sorts of people who've influenced me throughout my career. I think probably the main two, and actually in terms of talking about certainly my younger career, probably my dad had a big influence. So my dad grew up in quite a kind of modest household, council estate in Greater Manchester. Left school with quite few qualifications, I don't think he'd mind me saying, and worked his way up and became really very successful in his field. And he ended up sort of leading operations and sales across, a couple of continents for a pretty decent sized organization. So one of the things that I think helped him get there and that I always admired in him and that has sort of served him very well is that ability to kind of put himself forward for things where he's maybe been told no before. He certainly had a few knockbacks in his career, but like persevere and have that resilience to keep going when he knows that he can do it. And I think that's something that I've taken from him in terms of putting myself forward for things when I wasn't actually sure that I was ready to do them. But I kind of figured, well, I'll figure it out when I get there. And I know that I've got people around me to help me do that.
You mentioned that your father didn't have many qualifications, but he still excelled and succeeded. That also tells you about the temperament of a person, that it's not about the qualifications, it's not about the degrees or anything else that matters. It's about the person and who or what they can become. And I think that's evident in your father's success. What would you say about that?
Oh, absolutely. It's not to say he always was quite sort of strict around schoolwork and things like that. I think he learned the hard way that actually if you don't do so well in that side of things, things are a lot that can be a bit more challenging, especially in his day. But he always said, Kim will be all right, whatever she does. Because I get on with people and I have, I'm quite extroverted and I sort of get on with people and so on. So I think he always sort of, even those words give you confidence, don't they? Even if you're not sure why, you don't necessarily understand exactly what he's getting at. Exactly. Those sorts of things always give you confidence, I think.
And what about the second person?
Not very original, but also like my mum. So my mum, it was very, very different to my dad. So she was quite a quiet character, quite introverted, but she had this amazing ability to do the right thing in a professional context. So she worked in HR. She didn't continue with that all throughout my childhood. She was at home a lot of the time, although she did do quite a bit of volunteer work as well for the Citizens Advice Bureau. And she would talk about that. She would talk about her experience in HR. And again, in my younger professional years, I would talk to my mum and my dad, but a lot to my mum about, what was going on at work and this dilemma and that dilemma. And she just always had this ability to kind of cut through all the noise and see a solution that I hadn't seen that was the right thing for X person, for the business, for Y person. She just had this, very fair sense of fairness and justice that I always admired. And she would always do the right thing, even when it was hard, and she would always do it with kindness.
How does your training, your resilience, the hard work that you put in with swimming, how does that transfer when you're working with your clients? And what type of clients do you have?
It's a really interesting question. So I think it shows up in that kind of resilience. And, you'll know yourself in the early days of kind of setting up any business, you get a lot of no's or you get ignored a lot. And I think just keep swimming attitude is a really
got helpful. A lot to answer for.
It really has. And I think the other thing for me is also that kind of course correction. So in my kind of swimming, especially as I've been training a little bit more over the last couple of years, I've had some excellent swimming coaches that I've been working with just as part of a swimming squad. And just so those little adjustments that can make all the difference. And in terms of applying that to kind of my professional world, thinking about, okay, well, when I've contacted that person and I've received a response, but then it's not led anywhere, what might I have done differently? How might that have gone differently? And how might I, have made that conversion into
Right.
a sale? I don't like the term sale, but into a connection.
Yeah.
And how might I do that? So I think that kind of constant search for improvement and honing is something that I kind of take with both of them, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And in terms of the clients that I work with, I'm finding that the ones that I'm having the most success with at the moment are kind of smaller organizations. So smaller organizations working with either the founder or CEO of a small organization from a coaching perspective. So working with them one-to-one to kind of work through challenges that they might be facing. But also I'm starting to kind of branch into delivering training, leadership training with smaller groups of people in that, where in a business, there might only be one layer between the CEO, the kind of management layer, and then everybody else. And that management layer, I think, is often neglected in smaller businesses because they can't afford to have a whole cohort program. And there's no kind of point in it because there's so few of them. But also the kind of the cost of paying into an open cohort is maybe not quite what they're able to do. So I'm sort of trying to fill that niche, if you like, and I think that's something that hopefully is worthwhile.
Excellent. No, that's great to hear. Thank you, Kim. So whenever we talk about leadership or leaders, a lot of leaders out there have this way of saying, I have this belief about who I've become. I have this reason why I am the person I am today. I have this person behind me, or I have this group behind me, or actually it's been beaten into me or something. So it's all about the belief that you've got as a leader. What do you have that you believe strongly in that other people may think, no, I don't agree with what Kim's got to say?
So you want me to be controversial? Okay.
If you want. Yeah, no, please. That will help. It'll help the podcast.
We'll get those likes.
Like and subscribe.
So I think for me, one of the things that I think a lot of people think about leadership is that there is a kind of mental image that people have of a good leader, and that's often somebody who's quite extroverted, somebody who is confident, outgoing, and decisive, and all that sort of thing. And
I'm just going to interrupt and ask a question.
Yes.
What does that leader look like in your eyes? Give me a name.
Well,
give me a person.
A person. I mean, the obvious one, and it's maybe not quite exactly in that kind of vein, but actually somebody like Richard Branson is the kind of image that a lot of people would have, isn't it? Somebody like that. I think, don't get me wrong, I have a huge amount of respect for Richard Branson. He's an exceptional leader and has done such amazing things, and all that sort of stuff. But it's not one size fits all.
Exactly.
And I think one of the things that I really believe about leadership is that, yes, we can all flex. Some people are better at being more kind of flexible to the situation and to their environment than others. But I think there is also, and maybe this is where it is a little bit controversial, I think that there is sometimes a point at which you can flex too much for too long. And that's not good for you as an individual, where you're really having to, dial up aspects of your skills, strengths, personality, even more than is comfortable for a longer period of time to serve the needs of the organization.
Has that ever happened to you, do you think?
Yes.
Tell me when.
So I think there's been a couple of instances in my career. So I was, it was early on in one of my first roles, actually, where I was a project manager on a pretty big program for a government organization. They were the client, and it just required a level of detail and strategic thinking and diplomacy that I think I was ill-equipped to deal with at the time.
Right.
And it was absolutely exhausting, sort of having to second guess everything that I was doing.
Right.
And,
were they self-made issues that you'd created, or was it something else?
I think so. There was a couple of things. So absolutely, I piled a lot of pressure on myself to kind of, do this really well, and I mustn't get anything wrong because this is a big client and so on. I think possibly some of the support that I had at that time was maybe not exactly what I needed. Nobody's fault, nobody doing the wrong thing, no ill intent there at all, but it just wasn't really what I needed at that stage of my career. So I think at times I was maybe put into situations that perhaps I were maybe a bit beyond what I was able to handle at the time. And I think sort of, as I say, kind of dialing up those things that I do find. So the attention to detail thing is something that I do struggle with still. And it's something that I have to work really hard.
What was the impact to you at that time?
It really knocked my confidence, and I was exhausted. I mean, it's ridiculous for, or it's not ridiculous, but it's what it was. It felt ridiculous at the time to me that, I was 24 or whatever I was, and I was going home and having to sleep straight away because I was just so exhausted from sort of putting that act on throughout the day.
And how did you overcome that? So, the fact that you have exhausted yourself, overworked yourself, and that puts you physically and mentally into a very, I suppose, challenging place. How did you overcome that? What did you do? What kind of methods did you use?
I talked to people. So again, I relied on my mum a lot during that time because she was a very good listener and offered some really sage advice. And in terms of that, so things like sort of saying no, essentially saying, okay, I don't feel comfortable with this situation. Who might be able to support me? How else might I be able to prepare so that I don't feel exposed and or vulnerable or whatever else it might be? So I think talking to people is always something that is really important to me to kind of process things and get things off my chest so I don't bottle it up. So that was kind of one of the things that worked for me. And the other one was getting out of that situation. Fortunately, it was a rotation, so I didn't have to do it for that long. So that was quite lucky. But I've also learned, later in my career, when I found myself in a role that isn't a great fit, although it's been a great learning experience to kind of force me to kind of remove performance blockers, if you like. So things that maybe I'm not so great at that are actually kind of, that I need to learn to be a bit better at so that they don't hinder my performance. But once I've kind of addressed that and all that, kind of drawing on things that are not my natural strengths becomes draining. So kind of recognizing when the time is to move on and to kind of work it and lean into my strengths a little bit more.
Awesome. And that actually leads me into my next question. And that's about the stresses and pressures that come into a person's professional role. Everyone can be caught up under the stresses, under the pressures of jobs, situations around you, people around you, the amount of clients you might be working with. So when the pressure is the highest for you, who do you become as a person?
I'm going to give the classic answer. It depends. So it depends on my environment. So I think a lot of it depends on who I'm surrounded by and where the pressure is coming from. So if I'm with people that I trust and that I feel supported by, whatever level that might be. So whether that's, my peers, whether it's a line manager, whether it's line reports, whatever it is, then actually I feel like I respond quite well to that kind of pressure. I really dig in, and I like to think that I'm someone who keeps the morale up and kind of I will acknowledge the pressure because I think that for me there's nothing worse than pretending it's not there. And so everything's fine. While everything's on fire in the background.
No, exactly. Give me another example of a time that you found yourself totally under it, and you're trying to deal with it.
So there was a time at one of my previous employers. So I was involved in a program, a leadership development program, that sadly had to kind of close, and it was really devastating actually. So it's a different kind of pressure, I suppose. It wasn't that it's tight deadlines and pressure in that sort of way, but the program had to close, and as a result, people were kind of having to move on either outside of the business or within the business ideally. And that's what everyone wanted to do because we had such a great team. We were supportive of one another, and it was great. And it really dipped the morale really dipped as a result of that. And for me, the way that it made me respond there was to kind of almost sort of try and keep G'ing the team up a little bit. I wasn't the leader of the team. I was a kind of senior figure within the team, but I wasn't the leader of the team in that situation. And sort of G'ing the team up and kind of thinking about, okay, well, how can we go out with a bang?
Yeah.
You know, how can we kind of come together and make the best of what is a situation that none of us would have asked for? And sort of thinking about, okay, well, this is how person X is going to deal with it. This is how person, allowing everybody that space and almost kind of making sure that everybody was able to deal with it in the way that was helpful to them, as best as I could, as a kind of senior figure within the team.
And that's going back to what we were talking about before, where when you've got a crew of people around you, different people have got different responsibilities that they have to take on, and sometimes it's about taking those pressures off other people, off each other, to make them understand, actually, this is my role. I shouldn't be putting pressure on other people. Let me do it, so that it takes away that anxiety from another person. So no, you're absolutely right. Kim, I've got one final question for you, and it's about having honest conversations. Now, this is about being transparent about which you have been, but it's about the challenges that you faced, the anxieties that may have been created, the way that you get into your head space for when you're preparing for one of your endurance swims. But what's an honest conversation that you've been avoiding having, maybe with yourself or with somebody else? One or the other, your choice.
I think for me, a lot of it is around that kind of, I talked about kind of leadership being about vision and, working towards that vision in a way that's consistent with your values and so on. And I think for me, one of the things that I've been avoiding, with myself is a little bit around that vision, for my business and for myself, like what is the business and lifestyle that I want to create for myself? Yeah. And I can have those sort of very superficial, surface level conversations with myself. Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and all that sort of stuff. But actually, it's not a vision, it's an idea. Right. And I think I'm being quite vague with myself, because it's hard, right, to come up with a goal or a vision that is well thought through. And I mentioned about finding detail hard. Case in point. So really I think that's something.
But I have to say, thank you so much, Kim, for your time. I do appreciate it. It's always nice to know that you've let us know who you are and how you work with clients. You've let us know about a bit more about with Kim. But if anyone was looking to contact you, not was, but will be looking to contact you and learn more about what you do with Kim, how can they contact you to get your help and support?
Oh, thanks very much, Jay. So the best thing is to email me at connect@withkim.co.uk. I'm also on LinkedIn. I think my profile link is there on the screen as well. And if you're kind of down with the kids, just like me, you can go on Instagram. And it's very much more of a kind of personal one. But if you're interested in the swimming side of it, then I'll always be very happy to talk that. And that's at swimwithkimmcr. So those are the main ways to kind of contact me.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And you use that phrase, down with the kids. I keep saying that to my children. I think I'm 18 years old. And I go, no, Dad, you're nearly 60. Come on, stop it. Oh, my God. But I will make sure, Kim, I'll make sure that everyone can see your information. And anyone that's listening on the podcast, I will put the information into the description section for you. As for today's Becoming the Leader in You podcast, I'd like to thank you for watching or listening. And please don't forget, as ever, to share, like, subscribe so that you don't miss any of these fantastic episodes. From me, keep growing, keep leading, but most importantly, become the leader in you. I've been Jay Acharya, and my guest today was Kim Taylor from With Kim. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.